So, the Weekly Pete is pretty much a take on what I think. I've never really needed for other people to agree with what I think. I always welcome them to engage me and point out where they think I'm wrong because in owning newspapers, and I did for well nigh 40 years, among other things, other mischief, if you will, that I got into. I probably wrote three, four, 5,000 editorials, columns, and so forth. And when I look back, because I have copies of these, at least from the time everything became digital, which was pretty much in the early 90s. Yeah, earlier than that, probably in the 80s, mid 80s. My nephew was an Apple programmer, so we kind of got into that early. Anyway, when I reread these editorials, I find that I agree with them about half the time. And this stuff I wrote. And you write an editorial and you believe this stuff and you have your say I don't know that I've ever claimed to be terribly off, you know, uh, right or wrong. I kind of viewed it as the Wall Street Journal used to do, which is they kind of lay out, a good editorial lays out facts, and it says, well, this, and this, and then here's my take on how I interpret that, and that, and then you remand it to the reader to agree, disagree, but hopefully to think about. And newspapers, in retrospect, were a contemplative medium because we'd publish our daily once a day. You'd get it, you'd sit down in night, usually early afternoon, evening, and you'd read it and you'd say, "Man, boy, got that one right," or "Ooh, geez, this guy's nuts." And then the next day, another thing would come. That's not how it is today, where online it's clickbait. They're trying to get you excited so you'll click to make a few bucks off you or a few pennies, whatever it is. Or on media, on TV and cable, and the news stories are there to titillate and to get you to watch. Back in my TV days, which were mid '60s, when I was writing that stuff and producing that stuff at a station in St. Louis, when I asked, well, give me a little bit of instructions how you want this done, I was told that we want stories that will cause Harry Sixpack to set down his beer, leave it in the kitchen, whatever, and come back and put his nose right against to what? Say so. These TV guys have been after this and for a very long time. So anyway, in retrospect, I probably agree with about half of what I wrote in terms of editorials. Now, what we're really going to talk about is Mr. Trump, our president of the United States. Now, truth be known, I voted for Mr. Trump for three times in 2016, 2020, and 2024. And I did not vote so much for Mr. Trump as I could not feel that Hillary Clinton in 2016, Joe Biden in 2020, and Kamala Harris 2024 had the right stuff. Now that not that Mr. Trump did, but if we're going for choosing between bad and worse, just you have to choose bad, and that's what kind of we did there. Now, additionally, in the early going in his first administration, I felt, and indeed until just recently, I've always felt Mr. Trump was incautious in what he said, but nonetheless right in what he did, and so. But now here we find ourselves at the end of March with Mr. Trump making sounds like he said this just within the last 24 hours. People who've got a dog in the fight on oil and what they need to come through the Strait of Hormuz, which the Iranians are pretty well blocking right now. You know, if you need that oil, then you ought to do something about it, France. You ought to do something about it, England. You ought to do some. What? Wait a minute. You picked this fight with the help of Israel and some others. And you said, led us to believe that, number one, we're not going to let them have a nuclear bomb. Good going. You are correct about that. Second of all, they're not going to close the Straits of Hormuz. And third of all, there's going to be so few people left who can run that country that the people will rise up and take over, and glory days are ahead. Well, we're about 4 or 5 weeks into this, and Mr. Trump said 4 to 6 weeks will wrap it up. Well, now he feels he should be wrapping it up. Within the last week or two, we begin to hear that they're having negotiations. Really? What do you have to negotiate with Iran about? What do when you engage in negotiations, you're saying, well, what do you want? Here's what we want, and back and forth. What we want is Iran's fundamentalist, murderous bunch. They did kill, it is said, 20 or 30,000 of their own people in January, February. We're going to leave those people in place to continue to be bad actors around the world. People who, a regime that said death to America, wants a nuclear bomb, and has become quite adept at launching missiles short term. They have intermediates. They're now getting help, by all accounts, from China and Russia. And Mr. Trump has said he was going to give them 48 hours, then he's going to take care of, attack them and blow up all their oil. And then he gave them 5 days, and that's come and gone. And now it's going to be April 6th. Does Mr. Trump have any credibility with anybody? Because in terms of what the man is saying, he doesn't have any credibility with me. You know, when I would say something, and I didn't say much when I was in pitched battles with different people who wanted to run me out of business or wanted to kill me. And they did in the early 70s. These guys, the plowboys out in Oklahoma, threatened to kill me. I can get anybody killed in Delaware County for $25 and a bottle of cheap booze. The banker said it to me. These guys were mobsters, And I said to them, well, hopefully it'll cost you $35 and a bottle of good whiskey. But I didn't have any illusions that I could sit down, and do kumbaya with them and break bread and that we were going to ever understand one another. They had to go or I did. And in the end, they did, off to prison. All right, Mr. Trump, what exactly are you saying in your negotiations? And more than that, who the hell are you talking to? I mean, you told us you've pretty well blown everybody up and gotten them off to what's going on, because we're not getting enough information to know. And you did say, Mr. Trump, many years ago, decades ago, we ought to take Carg Island. Okay, go take Carg Island. And now we're hearing, taking Carg Island is going to be a real problem, Well, okay. You also said you're going to blow their oil, refineries, and whatever else they've got. I don't know what they've got. You're going to blow them to kingdom come. You're going to say, we're going to get this in. Well, and now you're saying to our allies, you take care of it. I don't know how this is going to end, but I know this. When you get in the middle of something like this, and it feels like that Vietnam thing where, by the way, we had Vietnam 1, and we had the South Vietnamese military and government in okay enough shape in 1974 and 75. And then Congress, the Democrats, pulled the funding for the South Vietnamese, and without that funding and able to continue to mature and to hold things, we got run out of Vietnam. We just picked up and left. Is that what's going to happen here, President Trump? Is that what's in your mind? Because this is going to leave an immeasurably more dangerous world if you do that. Well, we'll see. By the way, one other thing. There were a lot of people said, solar and wind and all these things, it'll all replace oil. I haven't heard that lately. What I've heard is how important oil, which it is to everything that's going on. Hell, there's oil in everything. So, if solar and wind and all these things were so great, I guess we wouldn't have to worry about that. But we don't have to worry about it in Mr. Trump's world anyway, because the United States has more than enough oil that we need, which we do, and we can export it, which we are doing. And so everybody else, well, if you want the Strait of Hormuz open, then, oh my goodness gracious, this is not going to end well, I think. So the other aspect of this is based on the experience in Vietnam, based on the experience of Afghanistan, where we had that country under control, that area under control. You may well have Trump may be right. We may have already won and done what we want to do in Iran, and the idea that they can defend themselves against us at this point, where we have control of the air and I suppose a portion of the sea at least, they could be a paper tiger. So I remember a good friend telling me when we were just before we going into the Iran war, a highly placed military officer, where I'd say, gee, they're going to attack Saddam Hussein in Iraq. How's that going to go? He said, they don't have an army. This will be over very quickly if we put boots on the ground. Well, maybe boots on the ground in Iran, this will be over very quickly, or maybe not. But there's an old principle here. If you shoot at the king, you better kill him. We've shot at Iran, we better kill him. And we better get those nuclear soft cake as well. I don't know how we're going to do that. Doesn't sound like Trump knows either. And so therefore we don't know how this is going to come out, do we? No, we don't. Okay. I think I will say no more. Well, except I will. Because we killed their top leadership. Now we're sitting over here in North America and secure, and yeah, we got our hair messed up during 9/11 and so on. But in terms of really, and you got scattered attacks and so forth, what makes Mr. Trump and what makes me in an era of cheap drones think that we can't be subjected to the kind of everywhere attack someday that we saw during Vietnam, where we didn't see it coming, but the North Vietnamese and their buddies, the Viet Cong, attacked us everywhere across South Vietnam. What makes us think, with an open border, as long as, thank you, Joe Biden, you left the border open and you let all these people come in? What makes you think that we are not vulnerable to the kind of multiplicity of attacks on our own home territory. And what makes Mr. Trump think that he can fly around and make speeches here or there and so forth? John Kennedy thought he could have a ride through downtown Dallas and make a speech, and he didn't make it to his speech. We could be on the edge of a much, much darker world. We could be looking back at March of 2026 as the good old days. I hope not. But I don't know where we're going with all this stuff, folks. I really don't.